No contact is one of the most powerful acts of self-respect you can take after a narcissistic relationship, but that doesn't make it easy. Cutting off communication feels unnatural when you've been conditioned to believe your survival depends on them. A narcissist slowly trains you to associate silence with danger and distance with loss. They make themselves feel essential to your identity, your stability, even your sense of reality. So when you finally choose no contact, you're not just blocking a person, you're breaking an addiction. You're choosing clarity over chaos, peace over obsession. It's an act of reclaiming your power, even though it feels terrifying at first, because your nervous system is still wired to their presence. In the early stages of no contact, the quiet can feel almost unreal. For the first time in a long while, your emotions aren't being constantly provoked or redirected. There are no sudden mood swings to manage, no passive-aggressive comments to decode, no emotional landmines waiting to explode. This silence can feel like relief, but it can also feel unsettling because chaos became familiar. Meanwhile, the narcissist is experiencing something very different. What feels like peace to you feels like abandonment and humiliation to them. They are no longer the center of your attention. And that absence is not something they process calmly or rationally. Narcissists do not experience loss the way healthy people do. They don't grieve connection, they grieve control. In their mind, you were a source of validation, attention, and emotional supply. When you disappear without explanation, it destabilizes their internal world. They replay conversations, search for cracks, and obsess over how you could dare to remove yourself. This isn't about missing you as a person, it's about losing access. Your silence becomes a mirror reflecting their powerlessness. And narcissists are deeply disturbed by anything that reminds them they are not in control. As time goes on, that internal panic often turns into strategy. Some narcissists attempt hoovering, reaching out indirectly, sending messages designed to provoke curiosity, guilt, or fear. Others may smear your name, rewriting the narrative to regain a sense of superiority. They need to feel dominant again, even if it's only in their imagination. What's important to understand is that every reaction they have is evidence that no contact is working. Your absence forces them to confront a wound they can't easily soothe, and that discomfort is something they will try desperately to escape. The longer you maintain no contact, the more the power dynamic shifts permanently. While they struggle with the loss of control, you begin to reconnect with yourself. Your thoughts become clearer, your emotions more stable, and your sense of self stronger. The narcissist may never truly understand why you left, but that understanding is not required for your healing. Silence is no longer punishment, it's protection. And in that quiet space, you rebuild a life that no longer revolves around managing someone else's ego. That is the true consequence narcissists fear most. Narcissists thrive on attention, validation, and control because these things regulate their fragile sense of self. Without a constant stream of reassurance, admiration, or emotional reaction, they begin to feel unstable. When you go no contact, that supply is abruptly cut off, and this creates an internal crisis for them. At first, many narcissists respond by pretending they don't care at all. They act indifferent, detached, even relieved. On the surface, they want to project strength and superiority as if your absence means nothing. This reaction is not genuine confidence. It is a defensive maneuver designed to protect their ego from the shock of being ignored. They may go out of their way to perform happiness for an audience. Social media becomes a stage where they showcase a perfect life, exaggerated joy, and sudden success. They might tell mutual friends how well they're doing or how easily they've moved on. Every smile, every post, every story is carefully curated. This is especially true if they believe there's a chance you might see it. They want to control the narrative and rewrite reality. The goal is simple: to make you doubt yourself. They want you to believe you were never important and that going no contact was a mistake you should regret. But this appearance of indifference rarely lasts. Behind the scenes, the narcissist is closely monitoring the situation. They are watching for any sign that you are still emotionally accessible. When their subtle attempts to provoke a reaction fail, something begins to crack. Silence to a narcissist feels like erasure. When they send indirect messages or create situations meant to trigger curiosity and you don't respond, it hits them deeply. They are not hurt in a healthy, reflective way. They feel deprived. The lack of reaction confirms that they are losing control, and that realization is deeply unsettling for them. Narcissists cannot tolerate feeling irrelevant. Their identity is built around being significant in other people's lives. When you stop giving them your time, energy, and emotional reactions, you remove the role they depended on. This doesn't just bruise their ego, it threatens their entire sense of self. Even if they appear calm on the outside, panic often builds internally. The longer no contact continues, the more they struggle to maintain the illusion of dominance. They may cycle through anger, victimhood, and grandiosity, trying to regain a sense of importance without ever addressing the real issue. At their core, narcissists carry a deep internal void. It is not something they can soothe on their own. Instead of developing emotional depth or self-awareness, they seek external regulation through others. Control, manipulation, and validation become substitutes for genuine self-worth. When you remove yourself, you interrupt that process. They are forced to confront an emptiness they've spent a lifetime avoiding. That is why no contact is so powerful. It doesn't just protect you, it exposes the truth they cannot face. And that loss of control is something they feel more intensely with every day of your silence. When you take that emotional supply away from a narcissist, what replaces it for them is an overwhelming sense of emptiness. This is where things become unstable and unpredictable. A narcissist cannot sit with emptiness the way a healthy person might. They don't reflect, heal, or grow. Instead, they feel exposed and desperate. If you've maintained no contact for a long period, they often begin cycling through tactics to pull you back in. This is not because they miss you in a genuine way, but because your absence forces them to confront a hollow space inside themselves that they cannot tolerate for long. One of the first tactics they often return to is hoovering. Hoovering is exactly what it sounds like, an attempt to suck you back into their orbit. This might start subtly, with a casual message or unexpected call that pretends nothing ever went wrong. They may act friendly, calm, even nostalgic. Sometimes they claim they've changed, that they finally understand what they did wrong, or that losing you opened their eyes. They say the right words, mirror your past pain, and present themselves as suddenly self-aware. But this performance is not transformation. It is a calculated attempt to restore access and regain control. It's critical to understand that real change requires accountability, consistency, and time, none of which narcissists genuinely invest in. What they want is not reconciliation, but dominance. When hoovering through charm or false remorse doesn't work, their tone often shifts. They may begin to play the victim more aggressively, framing themselves as abandoned or emotionally destroyed by your absence. Statements meant to provoke guilt start appearing, designed to make you feel responsible for their pain. They want to activate your empathy, because empathy was always the doorway they used to control you. When guilt fails, many narcissists escalate into anger. This shift can be sudden and intense. Messages become hostile, accusatory, or threatening. They may accuse you of cruelty, betrayal, or heartlessness, even rewriting history to paint themselves as the injured party. Some turn outward and begin spreading rumors, twisting the narrative with friends, family, or online spaces. This behavior isn't random. It's an attempt to regain power by controlling how others see you, because they can no longer control you directly. Chaos becomes their tool when manipulation no longer works. Narcissists thrive in emotional turbulence. Calm boundaries and silence are deeply unsettling to them. When intimidation, drama, and emotional explosions don't provoke a response, something profound begins to happen internally. They are forced to confront a reality they've avoided their entire lives, that they are not as powerful as they believed. This is where narcissistic collapse can begin. Their usual strategies stop producing results. The false self they constructed starts to crack. For them, this feels catastrophic, like the ground beneath their identity is collapsing. If you remain firm in no contact, you reclaim something far more valuable than control. You reclaim your peace. While the narcissist struggles with the loss of influence, you slowly regain emotional clarity and strength. Their collapse is not your responsibility, and their pain is not proof you did something wrong. It is proof that your boundaries are working. Silence becomes your shield. Distance becomes your freedom. And in choosing not to return to the chaos, you step fully into a life no longer defined by their need to dominate or manipulate. During this phase, many narcissists slip fully into victim mode, rewriting the story in a way that places them at the center of suffering. They tell anyone who will listen how deeply they were wronged, how cruelly they were abandoned, and how unfairly they were treated. Details are exaggerated, context is removed, and responsibility is shifted entirely onto you. This performance serves two purposes. It attracts sympathy and validation from others, and it helps them avoid facing their own behavior. By positioning themselves as the victim, they protect their ego from the uncomfortable truth that they lost control because someone chose self-respect. At the same time, they often begin searching aggressively for new sources of validation. This might look like jumping into new relationships, surrounding themselves with admirers, or seeking attention in any way available. These replacements are not about connection, they are about regulation. They are trying to fill the void you left behind as quickly as possible. Yet no matter how busy or distracted they appear, the loss of control over you lingers beneath the surface. New supply may temporarily soothe them, but it does not resolve the deeper wound of being ignored by someone they once dominated. For some narcissists, this prolonged loss of influence triggers something more serious. Without someone to control, they experience an identity crisis. Their sense of self was built around power, manipulation, and emotional leverage. When that framework collapses, they don't know who they are without it. This can manifest as depression, restlessness, or emotional numbness. They may appear lost, angry, or unstable. But this inner turmoil is not evidence of growth. It is the result of an identity that was never rooted in self-awareness, only in external control. It's crucial to remember that none of this is your responsibility. Narcissists are skilled at making others feel accountable for their emotional state. They condition you to believe that if they are hurting, it must be because you did something wrong. But their inability to cope with no contact reflects their own unresolved issues, not your failure. You are not obligated to rescue someone from consequences created by their behavior. Staying no contact is not cruelty. It is self-protection, and it is necessary for healing. In the end, a narcissist's reaction to prolonged no contact will vary in form, but not in intent. Whether they hoover, rage, collapse into self-pity, or seek endless validation elsewhere, the underlying goal remains the same: to regain control. By refusing to engage, you disrupt that cycle entirely. You grow while they remain stuck. Your silence becomes proof of your strength, and in choosing boundaries over chaos, you create the space needed to rebuild your life free from manipulation. When you stay no contact, something subtle but powerful continues to happen beneath the surface. While the narcissist remains fixated on regaining control, you begin to detach emotionally in ways you may not even notice at first. Your thoughts no longer revolve around anticipating their reactions or managing their moods. The anxiety that once felt constant slowly loosens its grip. This shift is deeply threatening to a narcissist because your growth highlights their stagnation. They sense that you are moving forward without them, and that realization reinforces their loss of relevance. Your silence becomes evidence that their influence is fading, and that is something they struggle to accept. As time passes, the narcissist may oscillate between denial and obsession, On some days, they convince themselves they never needed you, rewriting history to protect their ego. On other days, they obsess over how you could detach so completely. They replay moments where they believed they had control and try to understand where it slipped away. This internal conflict keeps them emotionally stuck while you continue to heal. They are not processing the loss in a healthy way. They are resisting it, fighting against the reality that you no longer respond to their emotional gravity. Your continued absence forces an uncomfortable truth into the open. The narcissist begins to realize that their tactics only worked when someone was willing to participate. Manipulation requires access, and control requires engagement. When neither is available, their power evaporates. This is why no contact feels so final to them. It removes the illusion that they are indispensable. For you, this distance creates clarity. You begin to see patterns more clearly, recognize how much energy was drained, and understand that the relationship was sustained by imbalance, not mutual care. Over time, the contrast becomes undeniable. While the narcissist remains trapped in cycles of blame, anger, or self-pity, you develop resilience and emotional independence. You learn that peace does not come from fixing others, but from choosing yourself consistently. This growth is not loud or dramatic. It is quiet, steady, and deeply transformative. And that quiet transformation is precisely what the narcissist cannot tolerate, because it proves that their control was never permanent. It only lasted as long as you stayed. As no contact continues, your internal world begins to reorganize itself in ways that feel unfamiliar but grounding. You stop seeking external validation to explain what happened and start trusting your own perception again. The confusion fades, replaced by a calm certainty that your choice was necessary. This is when the narcissist's grip truly weakens, because their influence relied on your self-doubt. Without constant emotional disruption, your nervous system slowly exits survival mode. You sleep better, think clearer, and respond instead of react. This steady return to yourself is not dramatic, but it is profound, and it marks the point where their chaos no longer defines your emotional landscape. Meanwhile, the narcissist remains trapped in a loop of unresolved emotion. They may continue checking in directly, asking about you through others, or revisiting old memories with distorted nostalgia. What they miss is not intimacy, but the sense of power they once had. Your growth forces them to face a painful reality that they were not the source of your strength. You were, and now that you've reclaimed it, they are left confronting an emptiness they cannot escape by blaming or manipulating. Your silence is not just absence, it is closure they never get to control, and that realization lingers long after you've moved on. With even more time and distance, you begin to notice how deeply the narcissistic dynamic had shaped your behavior. You may realize how often you minimized your needs, second-guessed your instincts, or stayed silent to keep the peace. No contact gives you the space to unlearn those patterns. You start speaking more honestly in your life, setting boundaries without over-explaining, and trusting that you do not need permission to protect yourself. This internal shift is quiet but irreversible. The version of you that once tolerated emotional erosion no longer exists in the same way, and that alone permanently changes the power dynamic. For the narcissist, your continued absence becomes a fixed reality they cannot manipulate away. They may still cling to fantasies of reunion or redemption, but those thoughts lose urgency as you stop being emotionally available. Their world shrinks while yours expands. New relationships, goals, and a sense of inner stability begin to take root for you. What once felt like loss reveals itself as liberation, and without confrontation, without explanation, you have already made the most powerful statement possible. You chose peace, you chose growth, and in doing so, you stepped beyond their reach for good. As this distance stretches further, you begin to understand that healing is not about forgetting what happened, but about no longer organizing your life around it. The memories may still surface, but they lose their emotional charge. What once triggered anxiety now feels neutral. almost distant. This is a sign that your nervous system is recalibrating. You are no longer bracing for impact or anticipating conflict. The narcissist's voice, once loud in your mind, fades into background noise. This is unsettling at first, because chaos had become familiar, but over time, calm becomes your new baseline, and that stability strengthens your sense of self. The narcissist, on the other hand, often remains psychologically tethered to the past. Without access to you, they may replay old dynamics internally, trying to reclaim a sense of dominance through memory alone. But memory offers no reaction, no validation, no control. This frustrates them deeply. While you are building a life grounded in self-trust and emotional safety, they are stuck chasing echoes of influence that no longer exist. This divergence is not accidental. It is the natural outcome of choosing boundaries over self-betrayal. You are no longer surviving their presence. You are living beyond it, and that difference defines everything that follows. Eventually, you reach a point where the narcissist no longer occupies the foreground of your thoughts at all. They become a reference point, not a fixation. You recognize the role they played without romanticizing it or demonizing yourself for staying. This perspective brings emotional maturity and self-compassion. You stop asking why they did what they did and start honoring how far you've come since leaving. Your boundaries feel natural now, not forced. You no longer explain them, defend them, or feel guilty for them. This is growth the narcissist cannot mirror because it requires accountability and inner work they consistently avoid. What makes this stage powerful is that your peace no longer depends on their behavior. Whether they are angry, regretful, indifferent, or still stuck, it no longer alters your emotional state. You are no longer reacting from old wounds. You respond from clarity, or you don't respond at all. And that neutrality is freedom. The narcissist may never understand how completely they lost access to you, but understanding is irrelevant now. You have outgrown the dynamic entirely, and in doing so, you've reclaimed ownership of your life in a way that cannot be reversed. As time continues to pass, your growth becomes increasingly visible, not to the narcissist, but to yourself. You notice how your thoughts, your decisions, and your emotional responses are no longer filtered through fear, guilt, or the need to appease someone else. You feel lighter, more present, and more grounded in your own reality. The obsessive energy that once consumed you is now redirected toward your own goals, relationships, and well-being. Every day of maintain no contact strengthens this new foundation. You begin to recognize that your life is no longer defined by manipulation or control, but by freedom, self-respect, and choice. And that realization is incredibly empowering. Meanwhile, the narcissist remains trapped in a cycle of obsession with what they have lost. They may continue to speculate about your life, try to interpret your silence, or seek new sources of validation to fill the void you left behind. Their energy is scattered, anxious, and reactive, while yours is deliberate, calm, and intentional. You are no longer reacting to crises they manufacture or absorbing their emotional volatility. Instead, you are building a life that is unshakable, precisely because it is not contingent on their behavior. This is the ultimate consequence of no contact. Your power grows as theirs diminishes, and the freedom you feel becomes impossible for them to influence. With each passing day of no contact, your sense of identity becomes more solid and independent. You begin to recognize patterns in past relationships and understand how your own needs were repeatedly ignored or dismissed. This clarity allows you to make choices based on your true priorities rather than the fear of upsetting or controlling the narcissist. You start cultivating relationships that are reciprocal, nurturing, and grounded in respect. You notice your intuition sharpening, your self-worth rising, and your emotional resilience expanding. Every step forward reinforces that the life you are creating belongs to you, and it no longer requires validation from someone who thrives on control and manipulation. The narcissist, in contrast, experiences increasing internal chaos. They cannot comprehend that your silence is not a temporary lapse or a test. They interpret it as failure on their part. They may attempt occasional interventions, subtle provocations, or indirect attempts to regain influence, but these efforts meet with nothing. Your consistency in maintaining boundaries removes the emotional payoff they have relied on for years. As you grow stronger, their strategies lose potency. They are forced to confront a truth they cannot change. Your independence is permanent, and the more you flourish, the more they realize their own limitations, inability to control, and dependence on others for validation. Over time, this distance creates a profound shift in how you experience life. You begin to recognize that your peace is not negotiable, and your boundaries are not up for debate. You respond to situations thoughtfully rather than reacting impulsively, and you no longer carry the constant anxiety of anticipating someone else's moods or manipulations. Daily life becomes more predictable, calmer, and more aligned with your true self. You find joy in simple things. Your energy is no longer drained by someone else's drama, and you feel a deepening sense of freedom. This transformation is subtle at first, but eventually it becomes unmistakable. You are no longer living for anyone else's approval or control. As this transformation solidifies, the narcissist's absence becomes a constant reminder of their lost power. They may continue to fantasize about regaining influence, imagining scenarios in which they still dominate your attention or manipulate your emotions. But without your engagement, these fantasies remain just that, empty, unfulfilled, and frustrating. The very thing that once defined their sense of self, the ability to control your reactions, has been permanently removed. Meanwhile, you continue to grow, grounded in your own reality and the strength of your choices. Your life moves forward in tangible ways, demonstrating that liberation is not only possible, it is lasting. As this new reality settles in, you begin to notice how much emotional space you've regained. You no longer feel the invisible weight of someone else's constant expectations or manipulations pressing on your mind. Decisions feel easier because they are yours alone, made without fear of judgment or retaliation. Your energy is no longer siphoned by games, guilt trips, or attempts to manage someone else's fragile ego. You sleep deeper, think clearer, and engage with the world from a place of calm rather than anxiety. This clarity allows you to reconnect with your own desires, ambitions, and dreams, giving life a richness you may have forgotten existed while you were entangled in manipulation. For the narcissist, the permanence of your no contact creates frustration that intensifies over time. Their attempts to hoover, provoke, or guilt you gradually lose effectiveness, leaving them with nothing but the uncomfortable reality of irrelevance. Every day you do not respond, every boundary you enforce confirms the loss of control they cannot tolerate. They may vent privately, obsess over perceived slights, or try to fabricate narratives to regain influence, but none of it alters the fundamental truth. You are no longer within their sphere of power. While they remain trapped in cycles of desperation, your growth continues unabated, proving that freedom is not just a temporary relief, but a permanent state you have chosen and earned.